Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, September 20, 2023, 5:15 meeting. Regular Planning Commission meeting now will come in order. Tonight's invocation will be given by Ms. Masayer and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Ms. Flores, Mr. Flores. Everybody stand, please.
Dear Lord, we thank you for the ability to come before you with this commission. We invite you to be here with us this evening and to grant us wisdom with each case and situation that is presented before us tonight. In your name we pray.
Now for the Pledge of Allegiance, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Commissioners, please announce any items you are recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Welcome to the new, I would like to welcome to the new commissioners, Oscar Bando and Gustavo Mendez to the Planning Commission. Thank you. Secretary, would you please give me a roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
Present.
Commissioner Boado,
Present.
Commissioner Mendez,
Present.
and Vice Chairperson De La Rosa is absent, and his absence has been excused unless there are any objections. And Chairperson Rivera.
Present. Thank you. We will now begin with the item number 1 on the agenda. At this time, I will open the public hearing. 5:19. May we have the staff report, please, Ms. Ian?
Good evening, Chair Rivera, commissioners, staff, and public. For the record, my name is Mona Mosayeb, Associate Planner with the Bell Gardens Planning Division. And this presentation is to discuss the proposed zoning code amendment 2023-062, ordinance number 937, as it relates to automobile storage. Background on this item. On August 14th, 1995, the City Council adopted resolution number 95-27, approving a comprehensive general plan update. On February 28, 2007, ordinance number 806 was adopted to recognize the zoning code into a more user-friendly format and make the city's land use and zoning documents consistent. Since 2007, zoning code amendments have been proposed to assess, address, and provide through individual ordinances solutions. This brings us to the matter at hand, automobile storage. Though the Bell Gardens Municipal Code, Chapter 9.28, provides development standards for automobile storage, the permitted land use matrix for commercial and industrial zones has no provision for this use, therefore prohibiting it. As you may be aware, automobile repair facilities require buildings and parking for queued vehicles as well as for customer parking. These same facilities are often overburdened with vehicles awaiting repair and exceed the incidental threshold for the required parking. In many cases, these impacts spill over into the neighborhoods adjacent to them affecting residential street parking. The Bell Gardens Code Enforcement Division does its utmost to respond to the calls and complaints. However, citations are not long-lasting remedies. These businesses need additional parking and alternative options. Also, allowing off-site parking lots for vehicles waiting repairs also allowing off-site parking lots for vehicle repair facilities as a primary use associated with repair facilities results in ensuring vehicles are parked in lots with proper filtration, drainage, and paving. The proposed zoning code amendment to 2023-062 to amend the Bell Gardens Municipal Code Title 9 Zoning and Planning Regulation, Chapter 9.04.010 definitions by clarifying that automobile storage as an accessory or primary use when connected to or in the vicinity of an automobile repair facility. Proposed automobile storage lots would serve as a parking location for client vehicles queued for repair, with clear language stating that no repair is done on the site. Inoperable, impounded, and salvage vehicles would be excluded from this site. These sites must also be within 500 feet of an automobile repair or service business. The intent and purpose: the proposed ordinance would expand the definitions of automobile body shops and automobile repair, major and minor, to include a locational criterion when an automobile storage facility is proposed, where there is no building in which activity or repair could be conducted. These automobile storage sites would be separate and distinct from parking lots or other outdoor storage uses with applicable development standards. This includes locational criterion when an automobile storage facility is proposed without a building. These standards include striping, solid masonry walls of not less than 6 feet, nor more than 7 feet in height, and the minimum landscaping standards. The proposed ordinance expanding the definition to allow for automobile storage is consistent with the Bell Gardens general plan. Specifically, the land use element policies number 3 and 5, that the city shall promote compatible commercial development to emphasize commercial identity and to enhance the appearance, potential economic vitality, and revitalization of the commercial area in the city. And the city shall provide an environment to stimulate local employment, property values, community stability, and the economic vitality of existing local businesses. Additionally, the proposed ordinance would be consistent with the recently updated 2022 circulation element policies. Policy M2.6 emphasizes the city's commitment to place safety and a reduction of collisions on high priority. Program M2.B states the city will assist applicants with demonstrating compliance with mobility policies. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, 1, open the public hearing and receive public testimony. 2, find that the recommendation on the proposed ordinance is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, close the public hearing and adopt Resolution PC 2023-06, recommending that the City Council's approval of zoning code amendment number 2023-062 and adoption of ordinance number 937, amending Title 9 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code. This concludes staff's presentation. We are open to any questions. Thank you.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on the public hearing item number 1. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so already, please submit all comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did receive 1 comment card.
Mr. Bruce A. Crow.
That'd be me. Emma, is it on? Okay, sorry, my phone went off over there. I turned it down. However, apparently, obviously, nobody has an opinion for themselves, but welcome, fellas. I'm not a very controversial guy, but you got a lot of controversy going on around here, so I don't know who's who, but hang in there. This issue is interesting since we seem to have a problem, not just in this city, but in every city. We don't seem to have our environmental impacts in order. Like here, it tells you at the conclusion, if you look at the cover sheet, says that there is no possibility that this code amendment may have significant effects upon the environment. That's an assertion. Since no specific activity would be authorized and individual projects would be analyzed prior to issuance of any permit for activity that may cause either a direct or a reasonable, foreseeable, indirect physical change in the environment. Now you're talking about painting stripes, storing cars for the business. Does anybody know how far from the business you can store a car? It's in there. Just something to think about. I like the best part of definitions. We're going to change the definition. We're not going to give any more sightings out because we don't have any ordinance for it. But now, well, no, we were giving citations out because there was no ordinance, but now we're going to have an ordinance, so we're not going to be able to cite anybody anymore, but we're still going to be able to throw these cars all out on the street up to 500 feet. That's almost 2 football fields. 2 football fields. That's a long way. Okay, now I'm not anti-business at all, if you know me at all. But I just find it interesting that we're going to have major automobile repair, minor automobile repair. That's just amazing to me. It's like calling a drug dealer an undocumented pharmacist. You know, you're going to lump all these things in one group. But because we call it something else, it's okay now, but it wasn't okay earlier. And it's not going to affect anything of the environment at all, either locally or in the air, climate wise. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretary, we have anybody in the chat?
Chairperson, no, we do not have anybody in the chat line wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you. Commissions? Before we close this item, I have a few questions for the staff. One of the things that we have is that when we say 2 issues I have, one is everybody, if it's approved, it will has to have a City of Bell Gardens business license as a body shop, right? In order to get this approved. I mean, in order to get this parking lot approved. whoever is trying to, we don't even, I don't even see who's the one is trying to approve this address, this parking lot.
It's not first of all, it's not a parking lot. It's an automobile storage.
I
Parking
know.
lot suggests openness to the public. This will be a purely private facility. It must be associated with either an existing business or within. So whomever is operating that location, yes, must have a business license because it must be tied to an automobile repair service business.
Yeah. We need to make sure that we said that he has to have a license already in the city. So we understand that it's already a local business. The next thing is 500 feet where he's gonna have the parking. How are we gonna transport these cars? And I know that some cars you can push it, some cars you can drive it, depending on the damage, but some of those cars are very destroyed. How are they gonna transport those cars after they park it on the yard into their location? We're gonna block the whole neighborhood? That's one question that I have. We don't have nothing for that matter in there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Stephen, City Planner. I would say when we're talking about transportation, then that would be under the purview of Public Works and the Police Department and the Traffic and Safety Commission, for example. So tow trucks, any means that they could use to use the public streets to get them there wouldn't necessarily authorize any blockage or any deviation from the normal public use of the right of way. So that none of this language in this ordinance would constitute an authority to block the street or change traffic. Neither does it compel anyone to necessarily use a tow truck or something like that. Some of the cars, like you said, could be moved under their own power, and others would be in the same way that the vehicles are brought to the site. If there was a building, could be used in that same way.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I've seen some people use a forklift. And a forklift is not legal to be on the street.
Yeah.
But since because it's gonna be legal for them to park 500 feet away from the shop.
Right. And this ordinance,
It can be misinterpreted, that they can be used a forklift. So can we add something in there that says that it has to be done the transportation from one location to another location the legal way, so we don't have to hear from the neighbors and later on?
Chair, if I may, it is very clearly stated in the ordinance that any vehicle parked at the outdoor storage, it must be operable. So inoperable, impounded, and salvage vehicles are not permitted to be parked at those locations. So the types of cars that you're referring to would not be allowed on those sites. Every vehicle that is on those sites. So for example, it might require a tow truck, but a forklift implies that it is inoperable, impounded, or salvaged. Those are not permitted. What we are trying to address are the queuing that is happening on the streets. So these vehicles that are being queued in the streets now have a home away from the public eye and not contributing to any pollution onto the streets. They are on a location that is designed to hold them while they wait.
No, that we have, now that you brought obviously these cars they have a problem where they've been crushed because they taken it to a collision shop. If they leaking antifreeze oil, how we gonna make sure that it doesn't go to the streets? I know that's probably goes to the Public Works, but I would like to see something on writing, how we're gonna take care of it and make sure that they don't contaminate the street so it doesn't go to the raining storm system. Another thing I have with my experience with body shops is it gets a lot of infestations, meaning rats, if you don't move the cars. So I don't know if we're gonna have inspections or how we're gonna do it, but even a local right now business, they have so full of cars, and some of those cars don't even move if it doesn't move over I would say 6 months, you got infestations for the neighborhood. So we need to be very careful. I would like to see some of those items. And I don't know if the members, they would like to see a different, the commission wants to see a little different option on this one, but I would like to see it with those items to be a little more clear and more specific. I don't have a problem having probably parking, but we gotta have the right way so we don't hurt our neighbors. And also, if they happen to work on those areas, the next house is specific, and this one that we talking about is a house next to it.
Chair Rivera, so City Planner Stephen Jones again, would you like to see, or what would you like to see with regard to avoiding infestations and pestilence? A length of stay added? I could ask the city attorney if that's something we could do, but is there a length of stay or something that you'd like to see as far as a limitation for storage of vehicles?
Well, it has to be, we have to figure out how we're gonna, we don't add more problems, because remember, a lot of these cars are coming, some of the cars are coming from customers, but a lot of these cars coming from storage. And I just would like to see some kind of action, and I need to see, probably the attorney can tell us how can we do it, if we need to have a system where a lot of the infestation of rats doesn't go to the neighborhood. And how many cars we're gonna allow per square feet, or how we gonna allow, because we're talking about is minimum landscaping. I don't know what that means. We need to have a specific numbers, what we're gonna allow. When you say minimum, it can be one tree, it can be 1 feet of grass. We need to see if it's with our standards on the city. And we want to be friendly with our business, but we got to be right. We cannot, this is something that is very annoying for the neighborhood if we don't do it right. So I don't know if the commissions feel like it. I would like to see this item. It's been moved a couple times. If we need more time, we probably send it to the next.
So to
Maybe.
summarize what your concerns are, you said rats and infestations, and the number of cars that would be allowed per
Square
lot,
feet.
per square
Yeah.
foot?
Because we're gonna have remember, you're gonna have so many cars in case of fire. You got gasoline on the tanks, you got all the stuff. How it's gonna be organized? It's like a parking lot that we allow when it's a body shop, when it's you need to have all the marks of the parts. So we know how many cars we're gonna have. So the fire department knows how to get in there, in case it's a problem.
Well, those types of things could be handled or are proposed to be handled during a site plan review. So any use would come to the planning commission for approval. And during that time, the staff would be asking for the site. And so the site plan, so when you talk about minimum landscaping, there's going to be a certain percentage required based on the zone. So we're talking about a couple of different zones here. So that's one thing. It's not going to be, 1 square foot. I know that's probably, not what you really meant, but it's going to be a minimum pursuant to what the code already requires for that zone. And then with the number of cars per square foot, we would again look at a site plan review, and based on any particular site, the spaces would be designated, the landscaping depicted, and once all the requirements for fencing and setbacks for a certain type of height and gate are included in a site plan review, that's going to restrict the number of cars that are allowed to be stored. And then with that, the site plan review comes to the planning commission. You have the authority or the discretion to have conditions or look at a site plan and make those determinations at that time. So with this type of ordinance for the number of cars per square foot, it's probably less likely to be something that we could really address in a meaningful way because we don't know what each site would look like. So having that broad interpretation is probably more appropriate. And then when they come to the site plan review process to the planning commission, you can say, look, you got 92 cars on here and you got a 5,000 square foot lot. Let's see what we can do to lessen that number or increase your landscaping. So some of this is addressed in here just because there's existing processes in place. And again, these are going to be discretionary, even though they're site plan reviews and we're calling them permitted uses. When you establish a new use on a vacant lot, for example, it's coming to the planning commission for discretionary review. So yeah, number of cars per square foot. We could look in to see how to address that, but I'm fairly certain that we want to be a little more broad with the ordinance, and I'll leave to the city attorney to chime in too if he likes, to leave the details, at least those minutia details, to the site plan review process, and then infestation. I can look into that. But
Well-
Lloyd, did you want to chime in on anything?
Well, we don't.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Department.
Chair Rivera.
Yes,
So there's, you've got the recommendation from planning staff. You could consider making a motion to give direction to planning staff. If you've got a majority of the commission agrees with you, you could give direction to planning staff to bring it back with, I guess we're not clear on the changes, but at least to look at ways to address the things you're talking about. I mean, there could be a conditional use requirement to deal with compatibility with the neighboring uses. There could be a maximum size so that it doesn't have too many cars. There's different things that could be done, but planning staff may have reasons that they want to keep it broader. And like Stephen said, to keep it for individual project approvals to decide on at that time. So they can, if you want to give direction to staff to address these concerns and bring them back either with solutions or with, alternative solutions or with reasons why they're standing by their staff's recommendation the way that it is, then, if you've got a majority, you can direct staff that way. And the other thing is, see if you could make a motion to not recommend approval and see if you get a majority of that on that motion. And if you don't get a majority on that, then someone could make a motion to approve it as it is, and then it would move forward. Just as a reminder to the commission, the planning commission does not approve the ordinance. This is a amendment to the zoning code, so it requires city council action, but it does require a recommendation from the planning commission, and it will move forward to the city council, whether it's a recommendation in favor or against. The city council just needs to know what the recommendation is. And if it's against, then, the staff report to the city council will say that, and they can, the staff report to the city council can explain the reasons that the planning commission voted against it. So you got all these, planning commission has all these options. You can vote to give direction to staff to bring it back to you, or you can make a motion to recommend not approving it, or make a motion to recommend approving it.
And then Chair, one more thing, this is Stephen again, city planner, before you get to summarize what you're looking for direction on, or what you're looking to give direction on, 2 points of clarification. Staff let me know that it's 5% landscaping, 5% of the site. So again, that varies based on the size, and the city engineer would require certain low impact development and drainage features to ensure there's no runoff on hazardous waste from vehicles. So again, the first step would be get a site plan review, have the planning commission make the decision on that. And those types of actions are appealable, but they're final in terms of level of decision making. So your decision will be final once they get the approval or the action from the planning commission. If it's approval, they get the permits from the city engineer and then a business license, as you indicated. So 5% on landscaping, city engineer looks at drainage, and the summary is what we're looking for from you right now on your direction.
Can you hear? And also will be a condition in there, so they can't work on the yard, right? Unless,
Correct. The ordinance actually also proposes that the section to outdoor storage be added to include a provision that says all inspection, repair, servicing, and testing of automobiles outside of enclosed building is prohibited. And so that would also speak to your concern about the public right of way. So transporting and all that stuff, you got to get it done. Again, as Mona said, they have to be operable. So those things are addressed in the ordinance as proposed, and the prohibition to do work outside is there. It's actually in a couple of different places in the ordinance, but we felt it important enough to have the redundancy here as well.
commissions, are you feeling that we need to send it back, put to the next meeting?
I just had a question. So basically, it's an automobile storage area, and it's going to be close to the business, correct? So they would have to have the space for it. Is that correct?
Correct, Mona?
That is correct. I also wanted, this is Mona Mosiah for the record. I also wanted to add a third point for what Mr. Jones was sharing. In terms of how the spacing or the number of parking that is on the site, it is based on the size of the lots, and it is based on the parking code that currently exists. Using the code, the sizes provided within the code and the clearances required by the code. So there has to be maneuverability on the site, to answer your question also, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you. Yeah, because space is limited as it is. So I'm trying to figure out where would these locations be at, because yeah, space is pretty tight. Thank you.
And one more thing, Mona, this is Stephen. I want to know if so that's something from our existing ordinance. We didn't necessarily have to place it here because the spacing markings, for example, 8.5 by 18 or 9 by 20, whatever it is something that's existing in the parking.
Correct.
Installer.
It's in the code, and also the existing ordinance, the existing code refers to it. And so that is a reason why it does not present itself in this ordinance, is because there was no reason to be redundant with that code. It exists. And so that development standard exists. That is the reason why you don't see it before you today.
And then one last question. So I did hear, so the projects to review at that time. So basically right now we're discussing this, but it's a case by case scenario based on the business. Okay,
That's correct.
Correct.
thank you.
I also have a question. Stephen, I think may have already answered it, but I'm just wondering, as far as drainage and filtration, if we are able to prescribe standards that kind of delineate the type of materials that can be used, or is that something that is already established by the city engineer?
Right. It is established by the engineer. Mona, you want to take this?
It's also done on a case-by-case basis. The city engineer will examine each case independently, and based on that lot will prescribe the processes that I wish I was an engineer so I can get into it with you. But yes, they get very specific for the materials that they ask for. There is a minimum standard, and that is also existing in the code. And it's very the simplest way of putting it, it's an extension of the existing code. So for example, if there is a service site or repair site, it's an extension of those codes on an automobile storage site. And that is why we have to differentiate it from a parking lot, because it is serving a very different purpose than a parking lot would be.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah, I understand the way, but it was not presented that way. And that's the confusion sometimes that we need to get. I know we have an ordinance and we're gonna change something and it doesn't explain what we're changing. And we have to assume that that's the same thing that we have in an order. It should mention on your new ordinance that you're trying to do, on your new changes. It has to specify in there the other order that we have. It will be adhesive to this one, and that's why that's why I'm a little confused on this whole thing, because it's not. It needs to be a specific. Say it, everything the way it's gonna be, because it's gonna create confusion. And I know, even if we do it as individual because of the size of the land, we have to have certain guidelines like we have in the code for the city. We not say if it's little, we're gonna allow, so many things. We have exceptions that we can do. If it comes to the planning commission, we can work with the business, and I guess I don't want to sound like I'm against business. We are for the business, but we want to do it right because we have residentials in there. And if you never been next to a body shop, I think you need to go at least one day. I will pay the rent, so you can see how difficult it is to be next to a body shop. And if we don't do it right, you're gonna have a lot of complaints. I think that's why we said that we need to do it right. I would like to see if the commissions would like to send it back for the next month so we can get a little more with all these items.
Chair, let me just respond to that. If you don't mind, Mona can respond as well. Stephen's own city planner, just to say that it is a little confusing because we make reference to the other divisions in this code. So we make you do a little bit of a treasure hunt, which is not the most ideal thing. But when you have capable and apt staff, as we do here, Mona and Adrian are able to find the things. And that's part of what we're tasked to do, to make sure that we're presenting the information to you and the public, so that when you are making decisions on the site plan review projects, for example, you know that we've done the analysis, we've shown you where it is. You may or may not have to go through it individually. You can use our staff analysis, our agenda report, and recommend and act confidently on projects. And so the references are in there, and it is easier for us to navigate because we're in it every day. And that's part of the reason, you become very familiar with it as you do it. I've been doing it for 23 years in different jurisdictions, but once you get to know a code, you kind of know it, and then you anticipate that everybody else knows it. I expect you to know what I know because I've been looking at it every day, just like you probably expect me or others to know about the shipping business or the container business or whatever business you've been involved in. So I get the frustration and a little bit of the confusion, but it is referenced in here. And then you do have that strengthening, I would add, that when we're citing folks now for violations of the code, that same obscurity challenges businesses, and it's difficult for them to know, hey, this is the public right of way. Why can't I park my queuing cars here? It's public, it's for everyone. And so we get that there's some obscure things in the code. So this is meant to strengthen not only the references and making sure that those are the correct associations, but when we have this ordinance with a little more teeth, because there's clearer and hopefully streamlined ways to get projects approved and enhance business. Now we can say not only are businesses possibly operating in error or in ignorance, we can now say that here's another opportunity for us to say we can revoke, for example, a site plan review permit because you guys have reviewed, analyzed, and acted on a project. Now that we have this portion of the code in conjunction with other portions of the code, we're now strengthening the city's resolve and the city's opportunity to make sure that development is managed and growth comes in the way that the Bell Gardens general plan envisioned. So with this ordinance, the references are there. The strength of the planning commission's actions in conjunction with this new ordinance with references to the existing ordinance make it so that we have more teeth for code enforcement, again, to say now you could be revoked, and that's a little more active assertion on the city's part. And so that's what this ordinance is intended to do. The references are there, staff knows where they are, and we can help the public and help you guys get to that. But once there's a site plan review application filed, our analysis goes through all that for you, presents that information so that it makes it a little easier for you to find and removes a little bit of the ambiguity and the obscurity. And then again, you also have that autonomy to add conditions because it's a discretionary process. So the last thing I'll say is that to speak to Commissioner Barcena's question about whether or not the materials could be a preference of material could be shown or added at a conditional, I mean, as a site plan review, a condition of approval could be added if you find that there's a nexus there for a specific type of asphalt or concrete. It may be challenging to make that connection, but there is something that you could do. But there are standards that are referenced in here that go back to the existing code that require asphalt at a certain thickness or concrete and the drainage. So all those things, all those different parts, and it would be a little difficult to put it all into one ordinance. You'd have a 1,000-page ordinance every time. And so it makes reference to what's in there. And again, at the site plan review discretionary part of it, that's where you guys would exercise authority. Mona, did you need to add anything to the, I rambled there a little bit, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, so I guess you say everything is in there already on the code. Are you gonna mention as far as the environmental so that nothing goes to the street? It's already on the code?
That is something that comes in when the project is analyzed by the city engineer. It becomes a condition of approval. So that when the project goes into construction, in order for them to get their final, that means all the departments to sign off, they must meet the conditions that the city engineer has required of them. So something of that nature, again, as Stephen mentioned, and also this is something important to mention, that by applying a certain standard today, those standards get updated every few years. So that means every few years, we're going to have to come before you again to update those standards. By allowing the city engineer to apply those standards on the case-by-case basis as a condition of approval, and you've seen this done also on other projects that have come before the Planning Commission in those packages of resolutions where there are, anywhere from 20 to 80 conditions of approval. Oftentimes, 10 of them are from the city engineer, requiring certain drainages, requiring certain details in terms of the paving, whether it's concrete or asphalt, as Stephen mentioned. So no, it is not in the code, but it is a part of the conditions of approval that are provided by the city engineer and the Department of Works, Public Works.
So it's not on the part of the approval for us. It's not one of the approvals.
It comes before you as a condition of approval from, like I said, either Public Works or the city engineer. It is included in the resolution.
Okay.
I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, that's clear enough for me.
And also remember that you can also double apply a condition that is added to those conditions of approval.
Okay, commissions, you got the option to approve it, send it back, or not to approve it. So tell me which direction we're gonna go. Make a motion.
If it would make you more comfortable, it's fine to send it back. I can make the motion to direct that it be sent back.
Need a second?
And before that second, I would ask for a summary of what specific items we're looking for a response or an update on. So far I have rats infestation, I guess, and how to avoid that, or perhaps the number of days a car can stay. So I would say rats infestation and anything else? Because the other items I would imagine have been addressed, but let's get that summary in there before we make that second. And I'll take notes.
Chairperson, if I may, before a motion is made, we just need to make sure we close the public hearing if there's no additional comments.
Commissions? No comments?
Okay, we closed public hearing now, right? Just want to make sure that public hearing is closed.
Not yet. I was just saying if there's no other question or comments in the public hearing wanting to be closed before we make a motion.
Okay, if I may add my 2 cents on the matter, I feel that city staff has presented to us a detailed standards list of what the mechanics will have to do when it comes to their parking. Maybe a peace of mind or a condition, but this is where I think code enforcement comes in and doing inspections on a year by year or whatever have you, to make sure that the applicant in question or developer in question, is just meeting these guidelines on a daily basis, right? I feel that code enforcement is exactly that, to do these type of inspections to make sure that the standards are met. And because I think that it's an education piece where we have to learn about the other ordinances that already have been touched and have been referenced. It's just, I think, an educational curve on our end as commissioners, so that we in the end be like, oh, we fully understand that there's so many parts in play when making a proposal like this. But from what I've gathered today from the staff report and from Mr. Lasco here, I feel that it does serve a great benefit for our residents and also for our mechanics with their shops. Thank you.
If
More
I may,
questions?
Chair Rivera, may I just clarify one thing?
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Lloyd Pilchin. I just want to clarify the meaning of closing the public hearing. So when you close the public hearing, which I believe the commission has done, that means, or I'm sorry, the idea has been raised about closing the public hearing. Really, that could have been done after you close public comment. The commission, among the commissioners, you're always free to talk to each other. When you close the public hearing, that does not stop your ability to talk, to deliberate amongst yourselves. So the main reason for closing the public hearing is to make clear that there's no more public comment. And you've already made that clear.
Thank you. And that's one of the reasons before I asked for close of the participation, we make those questions to make sure they stays open. We just have a motion on the table. Are the staff clear really what we need to do if we send it back? What we need to do, or if we're not clear, can we just put some clarifications, and maybe you need to get to work and we leave it for you to really get to these items that we have in question, like I have in question, like, the transportation. I don't want to leave it in limbo for the neighbors. And the minimum landscaping already been answered. But the rats, you can fix it and figure out what you can do probably later on. That's not a big item. And maybe we need to make a motion in a different way so we don't have to send it back.
Yeah, I think there was some confusion by planning staff on what exactly we wanted to see in the next draft of it. So I believe Steven was asking just if you could run by your list of things that you wanted to see, just so we can take note of it, and then we could go on the motion after that.
Right, and so this is Stephen, city planner again. So Chair, what I just heard was transportation, which I assume you meant about the public right of way. And so we noted that the ordinance proposes to add one section in the outdoor storage provisions for all inspection, repair, servicing, and testing of automobiles outside of enclosed building is prohibited. So I was under the impression that that spoke to that. And then you've got rats. So those are the two items. But what I'll also do is add right now that, because we mentioned code enforcement a couple of times, code enforcement was past the ordinance. They had no comment. And so that is indicative of their support of the language that's there right now.
Any commissions?
Just-
So
Sorry.
it sounds like you're going to need a second on that motion for these two items. And as the city attorney has said, either it's going to pass or fail. And then if something fails, you'll need to come up with another motion.
And just to make sure we're on the same page here, right? There's one thing you brought up, and thank you for doing that. And once again, it's the project review at that time. I like that. And every case is different, right? Because of the businesses. So that I do appreciate. And moving forward, as far as who would be part of that project review at that time?
The staff receives the application and we process it through the agency, the affected agencies in the department, and the fire department is on contract. So we would send it to fire, we'd send it to building and safety, we send it to public works for the city engineer. And I believe even the police. So there are certain agencies within the city that we already send all the projects to before they come to you. So we get clearance letters, and then the planning commission has all the information before them. And if they need more, obviously you can ask for it, but you have the information for them in before you guys in terms of the analysis and the other affected agencies, and those clearances would all come in the packet, similar to the one we're doing just after this. And that's where you make your decision.
And that would include like environmental.
Yeah, at that time as well. Yeah.
Got
So
it.
we would be the planning staff works on the environmental analysis. And if there's something that environmentally we are either unfamiliar with, or it's just outside of our breadth and depth of our knowledge, we get consultants to help us with those types of things.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I would like to special make a little comment on this transport, because think about it, if we have a body shops on Florence and they get a lot 500 feet down south or down everywhere, east and west, however they want to do it, and then they have to go to the traffic with the forklift or pushing, and that's how I see it in the long term. If we had all responsible operators, we'd be okay. But we got to make an ordinance, and that's why, if we can put something in there, I don't know how can you do it.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. I just want to make sure that later on, I don't want to hear that the people are moving in forklifts.
I think I understand. And this is Stephen Jones, city planner again. I believe we have a motion on the floor, and I know we're working on it, but it sounds like you can mention the transportation. So is the provision that outside of an enclosed building prohibited is not working for you? Are you looking for something specific with forklifts and stay out of the street, or what type of?
Well, it will be forklifts, because forklifts or that's the
Commonly
illegal.
associated with, they're not, so that's the thing. We're not saying they can be on the street, and the Department of Motor Vehicles, for example, would take precedent there and say, you can't have a forklift on the street. That's not really our area of jurisdiction. So that's why it's a little challenging for us to say, take it back for forklifts in the street. It wouldn't be something that would be contained in a land use ordinance.
Okay,
And that's why I think the provision to say all inspection, all repair, all servicing, all testing of automobiles outside of enclosed building is just prohibited. The only thing we're authorizing here is to store them. We're not authorizing transportation. We're not authorizing movement. It would have to comply with, again, the other, and I know that's not the best answer, but it's kind of that puzzle piece. You gotta get the right puzzle piece for the right space. And so in that space, the public right of way, there's not a lot we can do
okay,
that would be responsive.
okay.
And just to
Well,
add to that,
yeah.
right, it would be, because it is in the code where we're talking, you all mentioned earlier, inoperable vehicles, right? So at that point, I mean,
Yeah,
it would
it's
get
cited.
cited, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, I seen it. That's what I'm saying. I seen it. It didn't happen. I see a big fight in court. And the body shop, if you have a license yard and you allow them to park over there, and then that is giving them a little right, so how are they gonna move it? Unless you specify that you not allow any automobiles from location A to B, only the legal way, and I don't know how to do it because I'm not, well, that's probably the legal.
Well, I think
Okay.
just the way Commissioner Botta just mentioned is that there's a provision that says they have to be operable. So, I don't, yeah,
Okay.
there's just that provision. And with the prohibition for outside work, those are the things that
All right.
would speak to that.
All right, commissioners, tell me what's the,
So I think we need to talk about that motion that we just did for bringing back and either make another motion because that doesn't sound like that one's on the floor anymore.
okay, thank you. Commissions?
I just want to verify that I do think we need to make another motion, correct? I forget his name. Lloyd?
Excuse me, if I may, I'll weigh in on that, Lloyd Pilchin. I believe the first motion, died for lack of a second. So, am I right that there was no second?
That's correct, Lloyd.
Okay, so then, there is no motion on the table.
Okay. At this time, if the planning commission will not have any problems, I will close public participation. No problem. Close public participations. And if there's additional comments, planning commission will be closed. At this hearing, it will be, let me see what time is 6:14. Commissions may need a motion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I, Commissioner Mendez, motion to approve the zoning code amendment number 2023-062 automobile storage ordinance number 937.
I second the motion.
Secretary, will you give me roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
Yes.
Commissioner Boado,
Yes,
Commissioner Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Public hearing item number 2 will now begin. Number 2 agenda at this time. Now we'll open the public hearing. 6:15 PM. May I have a staff report, please, Mr. Flores?
Thank you, Chairperson Rivera, and good evening, Commissioners. Today I'll be going over tentative parcel map number 83969 and conditional use permit 2022-078. This is related to a project for a 4-unit condominiums located at 7945 Scout Avenue. 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 7945 Scout So the request is the applicant's request an adoption of Planning Commission Resolution 2023-12 and Planning Commission Resolution 2023-12. And this is to find that the tentative parcel map number 83969 and CUP number 2022-078 are exempt from provision of CEQA. And it approves TPM number 83969 to create one parcel for condominium purposes on a 9,600 square foot lot. And lastly, approves CUP number 2022-078 to authorize the proposed development of a 4-unit residential condominium project located at 7945 Scout. Now, a little bit on the site description. Again, this project is located at 7945 Scout Avenue, as shown here in the hashed parcel here. It's going to be located in a zone R3, land use designation of high density residential. The subject site is approximately 9,600 square feet. Now, some of the surrounding land uses, we have north is residential, south is the Ford Park, east is residential, and west is also residential. Now, this is the current condition of the site. Currently existing on site is a single family dwelling unit occupied by a temporary property caretaker. And just another view of the property. This is a view from the alley. And as you can see, there is a large backyard that's underutilized. Now, the request for the approval of tentative parcel map number 83969 is to create one parcel for condominium purposes on a 9,600 square foot lot. Now, the subdivision will allow for 4 condominium units as shown here in the diagram on the screen. Now, the proposed drainage and grading infrastructure improvements, including paving, building pad details, are depicted also on the tentative map as well. Now, if approved, this map will go to our city engineers for review and approval. Now, a little bit on the site plan. The subject site's front property line is located along Scout Avenue, and the rear property line is located along a public alleyway. Access to the site would be made available from a 20-foot wide 2-way driveway off of Scout Avenue, as shown here in the yellow arrows. Now, the project would consist of 4 condominium units, each at 1,642 square feet in size, as shown here in red, each with its own 2-car garage, shown in blue. In addition to the 2-car garages, the project is also proposing 2 guest parking spaces, as shown here in the purple, between units 1 through 3. The proposed project would also provide 1,976 square feet of common open space with new landscaping, as shown here on green. And it would also include a new concrete driveway and a trash enclosure located in the brown, as shown here. So this is overall the site plan of the project. Now, a little bit on the floor plans. So each condominium unit will consist of 3 floors. The first floor will consist of a 2-car garage and 146 square feet of living space to include a private patio, entry space leading to the stairs that would eventually lead you to the second floor. Now, the second floor will consist of 639 square feet of living space, including a living room, as shown in orange, a kitchen, as shown in red, a private open balcony, as shown in green, a bathroom shown in yellow, and 1 bedroom, shown in purple. Lastly, the third floor will consist of 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and the third floor would total to 677 square feet of living space. So it'd be a total of 3 floors. Now, on to the elevations of what the buildings will look like. As previously mentioned, the project will consist of 3 stories. The proposed project has been architecturally designed to incorporate a modern contemporary style that is projected to include stucco wood siding finishes. Now, the proposed exterior colors of the building would be painted in 3 tones, as shown here. The primary color would be beige with brown trims. and the tan wood sidings as shown here. And of course, the garage doors would be sectional garage doors. Now, the tentative parcel map number 83969 has been prepared in accordance with chapter 9.78 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code. Also, applicant's request meets all of the findings established under section 9.50.050 conditional use permit of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code and in California Government Code section 66474 for subdivisions. Additionally, the proposed project would conform with all applicable standards for residential exterior building and site features and zone development standards and required pursuant to section 9.10.040 table 9.10B residential development standards matrix. Also with chapter 9.38 parking and loading, and lastly, section 9.20.14 residential condominiums conditional use. And applicant's request is consistent with the City of Bell Gardens general plan. Now, again, it is recommended that the Planning Commission, 1, conduct a public hearing, and 2, adopt Planning Commission Resolution PC 2023-12 and Resolution PC 2023-13. And this will do the following. It will find that tentative parcel map number 83969 and CUP number 2022-078 are exempt from provisions of CEQA. It would approve tentative parcel map number 83969 to create one parcel for condominium purposes on a 9,600 square foot lot. And lastly, approve conditional use permit number 2022-078 to authorize the proposed development of a 4-unit residential condominium project located at 7945 Scout Avenue. That concludes my presentation. Staff and applicants are available for any questions commissions may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissions, any questions?
I have a question regarding parking. So it's a 2-car garage, correct? Each unit, and then there's also room to park vehicles. Do you know how many?
Yes, so each unit, 4 units, each has a 2-car garage. So that's 2 per unit. And then there's 2 additional guest parking spaces. So there's going to be designated guest parking spaces for any visitors for the residents at the each of the units. So it'll be a total of 10 parking spaces.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple questions. The building will be retrofitted.
It's going to be a brand new building. So everything's going to be brand new.
Okay, I guess should be more inclined to, because of the earthquakes, making sure that they are on the state standards when it comes to having the movement of the building go with the earthquake in case of an earthquake.
Yeah, so that's usually reviewed during the building and safety plan check process. So as of right now, we're just reviewing the design and architectural aspects of the project. But yes, that will be reviewed during the review process for building and safety plan check.
Thank you. And will they have additional fire exits or additional exits, seeing as how it's going to be 3 stories?
Can you elaborate on the question? Exits for the property or for each unit?
For each unit. In case of an emergency, will they have additional exits out of the building?
Well, as of right now, they are proposing the garage as an exit, and then there is another exit on the first floor in the entry area. So as of right now, there are 2 exits on the first floor. But in terms of fire escapes, there are requirements within the building and safety review of the size of the windows. So there is fire escapes through those windows.
Thank you so much.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have another
No.
question. Sorry, I noticed he said landscaping. Is that something that each, I guess, new project, is that something that they're required to do? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's on case by case on how much landscaping they have to provide. But for this project, they are required to provide 20% of landscaping for the common open space, and that would go through a landscape and irrigation review plan check, which we have a consultant that would do a review process for that.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on the parking. Does the site plan take into account or consider that tenants may use the driveway for parking? Is that something that's in there or that could be considered?
Yeah, so that's usually provided during the LA County fire review process. What they'll do is they'll do a fire lane, and then they'll require no parking signs along the driveway. It usually happens with the new projects that come along. So that's something that's done with the LA County fire.
Okay, thank you.
Can you put the parking spaces on the for the view over there? So where is the parking space for the guests?
They're located in purple, so it's gonna be located between units 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
So that's the parking. The blue is the parking for the condos, right? For the condominiums.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the guests?
The guest is in purple between unit 1 and 2, and then the second is between unit 2 and 3.
Okay. Then another question I have, since this is condo, who's paying for the water, for the green, for all the gardens?
So that would be a question for the applicant. That's not a part of the review process to determine who's paying for the landscape.
So the meter is gonna have a separate meter, or is gonna be, that's the question I'm asking, what meter is gonna be for the water, for the landscaping?
You know, so that's usually occurs during the building and safety process of this project. That's not something we will get information of at this point.
And I think it should be, if it's 4 units, it should be 4 meters, right?
Chair,
Because
this-
they're condos.
Yes, Chair, this is Stephen, City Planner. The ownership type would dictate, because they are condos and this is not an apartment project or a one unit, one lot. It's actually a parcel map that's associated with it. So the property ownership will dictate how the condo association, HOA, would take care of that or provide for that. So each unit will have its own meter, and then the common open space, which is commonly owned by or subdivided by the airspace, will
So
be up to them.
we will have association for the
Yeah.
4 apartments?
And then, well, it's not apartment, so it's condo project that's temporary, that's sole ownership. So should they decide, they can sell each one of these separately and apart. And so then in that ownership mechanism, the common open space would be taken care of. Our job is to say, make sure it is maintained and make sure it's maintained well. They would need to decide how that's broken up.
Okay, thank you. Commissions, any more questions? No more questions. I will now open for public comments on this item. Secretary, will you please announce the instructions for the public participations?
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 2. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit all your comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did receive 1 comment card.
Mr. Bruce Crow.
In the words of Pauly Shore, I'm back. All right, 3-story condos. Man, 4 of them. How many people are you gonna put in this thing? Just a thought. Parking, at least 10 spots. Question is, this is about, as it's clearly stated, its intended purpose is to regulate and control the division of land within the city, preservation of health, safety, and general welfare, and for open spaces. Okay, the gentleman mentioned that the current occupant is not utilizing the space. That's their house, I guess. They should be able to do it however they want. However, this is a bit schizophrenic. Are these houses, are they going to facilitate the strengthening of our state's climate action goals? Have we seen anything what our state's climate action goals are? Are they going to be able to use natural gas for heating? We got to get rid of natural gas, right? It's no good. It's bad for the climate. We got to save the earth and save Mother Nature. Right? We need wind and solar. That's it. We don't need clean coal. That's the question. Has Mr. Stephen Jones brought anything about how these houses or these condominiums will meet that objective? Are they going to strengthen our climate action goal from the state? I haven't seen anything. The onus is on you, but you want just to control the division of the land. That's what the government wants to do. So also it is to increase investments in public transportation. Now, we had a building last week, they were worried about cutting out the parking facilities, and you could take public transportation if it's within, 500 to 1,000 feet. This doesn't do that. This is a bit schizophrenic, if you ask me. If we're going to strengthen our state's climate action goals, whatever they are, we don't seem to know what they are. Nobody has mentioned them. Not even Gavin Newsom. He don't know. So that's the big question here. And previously, the issue, poor staff, they obviously didn't do enough work on that. They didn't think it through. If you have a shop, I think Mr. Jones is a little generous at 92 cars, but if you had a spot of 50 cars, can they do 10 cars a day in a 5-day work week? That's the question you got to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary, we have any speaker in the chat?
Chairperson, one more speaker that would like to speak on this item.
Okay. Michelle Castañeda.
The owner, Salvador Polina, that's actually here as well. He does a lot of construction. I feel like this development that he's doing with the 4 condominiums is something that's going to help out with housing in the community. His style, the contemporary, I feel like it's something that will enhance the community as well. It's in front of a park. And if the biggest question that you guys have is in regards to parking requirements, I feel like somewhere in the conditions, because of the whole ADUs and garages turning into ADUs as well, it can be stated that the garages are going to be strictly just for parking. There's not going to be any ADU conversions in the long run or anything. So they will have parking, they will have the guest parking, and I feel like it will avoid any parking being taken from the street. And I feel like the development complies with all the standards that the city has, and we feel like it's going to be a good improvement to the community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Secretary, any person who wishes to speak on the chat?
Chairperson, no, we do not have anybody in the chat line wishing to speak, nor do we receive any additional speaker cards.
Thank you. If there is no objection by the planning commission, I will close the public participation. If there's no additional questions and or comments by the planning commission, I will close the public hearing at this time. Will be 6:35 PM. May I have a motion to approve, recommended as noted on the staff report and representation, or any other motion by the commissions?
Commissioner Mendez approve of the tentative parcel map number 83969 and conditional use permit number 2022-078 for a 4-unit residential condominium project located at 7945 Scout Avenue.
Just need a second.
I second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Secretary, will you give me a roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Barcena,
Yes.
Commissioner Boado,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Go get it done. Tell the owner to go get it done as quickly as possible. Thank you for doing this in the city. Next will be the public comments on the agenda, on agenda items. I will now open the item listed on the agenda. Secretary, please announce the instructions for the public participation.
The members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on agenda items. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the members of the Planning Commission. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. And Chairperson, we did receive 1 comment card.
Mr. Bruce A. Crow. Oh.
I apologize about that.
Anybody in the chat?
No, Chairperson, we do not have anybody in the chat line, nor do we have any comment cards.
If there is no objection by the planning commission, I will close the public participation on the agendized item. Consent calendar item number 3. We will now move to consent calendars. Does any member of planning commission wish to pull an item separate discussions? Well, the planning commission wish to pull none of the items? Need to make a motion and to pass the calendar. Item number 3.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the August 16, 2023 Planning Commission minutes.
Second. Need a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call on that one too?
Commissioner
Only for
Barcena,
reference.
Yes.
Commissioner Boadro,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendez,
Yes.
and Chairperson Rivera.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Public comments on that agenda item. Now open for items not listed on the planning commission agenda. Secretary, please announce the instructions for the public participation.
The Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the planning commission agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining to the Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from members of the public that are physically present in the council chambers. If you haven't done so already, please submit your comment cards now. Chairperson, we did receive 1 comment card.
Thank you. Non-agenda item, Mr. Bruce A. Crow.
All right, quickly. In fairness, sometimes my sarcasm comes through a little bit. I am not a climate change lunatic in any stretch of the imagination. Build those condominiums, that's fine. If that single family dwelling is not going to be utilized, then go ahead and progress and have some condominiums, have parking. Forget all this climate change lunacy where they're going to eliminate the parking and you can just go down and be a slave in their apartment. You could ride the bus and get robbed or whatever else is going to happen on the bus. We need freedom and liberty in this country. You need to get in your own car. You got to be mobile. That's progress. And we only have progress and safety and security in a society when we burn fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is the thing that protects us. It's improved our quality of life. We don't want to go back to the 15th century Europe where you're burning wood in a hut somewhere and you're breathing in this garbage that comes from that and your life expectancy is only 50 years old. We don't have that anymore. We don't have that. If it gets too cold outside, we just go turn the knob and it goes up to 70 degrees. That's from fossil fuels. There's nothing wrong with that. We're not going to get rid of the cars. Don't think you can go wind and solar for everything. That doesn't work. It's only 3% of the power of the entire world. But don't be schizophrenic and try to justify the ADUs and things like that. The Democrats in Sacramento and the Washington, D.C., they don't know how to run anything. I always say they could run the Sahara Desert and there'd be a shortage of sand within 6 months. And that's not an understatement. There's no doubt about it. And with Mr. Stephen Jones, I know just reading the PAT templates and the staff reading PAT templates, we need some common sense logistical experience in some of these areas. And I mentioned that shop owner, if he or she can work 5 days a week and get 10 cars a day out, in and out, that's 50 cars. 92 is a lot. That's a junkyard at that point. I don't know about the rats. I hope they're not as big as New York's, but you got weeds and everything else. But you know, the staff has a tough job. It's not an easy job to organize something like that and to think of this stuff. But you gotta be prepared. You gotta slow down. Just don't come up here and rubber stamp things just because to rubber stamp it. I mean, over in Downey, they do the right hand. Then when that gets tired, they pick the left hand up and they start using it there. Try to do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is no objection by the planning commission, I will close public comments on non-agenda item. Close. Staff comments.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Gentlemen, the information I have for you tonight by way of announcements is as follows. As you're all aware, the Commissioners roster was added to with the appointments of Commissioners Boado and Mendez. So welcome again. City Attorney's Office conducted training, which I was a part of recently, and our commissioners come to us from the Education Commission and are apt and ready to dive in. So thanks, gentlemen, for that time. Recent City Council action on 9/11, the City Council indicated its intent to approve and adopt ordinance number 938 to expand parking exceptions and require alternative parking on your commission's unanimous recommendation from the 8/16 PC meeting. So thank you for your work there. Also on line 11, Director Romo introduced a discussion item to seek council input and direction on the need for an ordinance to add provisions for the city to keep track of vacant and abandoned land and or buildings, to stave off blight, and to address areas that promote unsafe and illicit uses and affect the ability to effectively manage sustainable growth and development. So you'll probably be seeing an ordinance should the city council decide to get your recommendation on a vacant, abandoned building and property ordinance. The sidewalk vending ordinance enforcement update was provided also by the director in a joint effort to report the recent code enforcement activity to ensure compliance with state and local regulations. Notices of violation and assessments of fines have been processed where city officials observe activity in conflict with the sidewalk vending ordinance provisions. Vendors may seek help with first obtaining health permits for food processing and cooking within permitted types of carts prior to obtaining business licenses. And then planning items that were included in the city's previous biweekly happenings were A, completed planning division projects that the commission has heard. There was at least one. On September 7th of this year, the planning division issued a final approval to a 7-unit multifamily apartment house dwelling project at 7604 Perry Road. Prior to construction, the R3 zone site was underutilized with one single-family residence and overgrown and unkept vegetation in disrepair as landscaping. The finalized project introduced 7 apartment units, each with two car attached garages, new landscaping and irrigation, new trash enclosure, and the planning commission approved that project on July 17th, 2019. So you can kind of gauge by the time it was about 4 years. Let's see. And also in the biweekly, we made notice of grants that the planning division recently received, both from Caltrans rather, one for sustainable transportation planning. This city received $355,450 to create a transit-oriented community-specific plan. And Caltrans also conditionally awarded the city $211,175 for climate adaptation planning to develop a climate action plan that proposes building resilience for a sustainable Bell Gardens in response to climate change. And then quickly, I have a presentation that I'd like to share. I'm going to fly through it and see if I can get it up, or actually it's going to be brought up on the screen. Short presentation here just to talk about recent survey results for the environmental justice element that's underway. So, oh, there we go. Yeah, I don't need to share my screen then. It's there. Oh, never mind. What are we doing? There we go. Thanks. So we, our environmental consultant, our consultant for the environmental justice element, Impact Sciences, summarized results that your commission will be able to review and comment on during the study session next month. But I did want to just bring those results to you really quickly. So yeah, next slide then. The staff received a summary of results and draft goals and policies that could be developed in response to the community input. So as of 9/19/2023, 88 survey respondents participated, with 79 in English and 9 in Spanish. 92% identified as living and or working in the area. Next slide. The top external air quality issue was factories, industrial operations, and the top internal air quality issue was mold. Next slide. Respondents were chiefly concerned about contaminated water for water pollution issues and homelessness for community concerns. Next slide. On a scale of 1 to 5, stakeholder respondents ranked public facilities on average 3.2 out of 5. Next slide. Safety and maintenance were ranked at about 3. Next slide. Of respondents, parking availability was the highest housing concern, and increased cost of energy was the highest climate change concern. Next slide. Few respondents always attended commission or council meetings, and inconvenient times ranked as the biggest barrier to participation in those meetings. Next slide. Most respondents are neutral on feeling heard, and most obtain relevant information from social media. Next slide. Minimizing exposure to and impacts from air pollution from vehicles and industrial uses top the concern and goal responses. So that was both their concern respondents and their goal for an environmental justice element. Next slide. So our consultant proposes goals that minimize exposure to and impacts from pollution, goals that improve citywide health, goals that ensure well-maintained and affordable housing, provide and expand public services, and goals that increase civic engagement. Next slide. The next slides actually detail 30 policies proposed to implement those goals we just discussed for health, pollution, public services, and civic engagement. So again, to that end, a study session in October will be presented so that we can delve into the topics and comment on what the consultant proposes to put forth as an initial draft of our environmental justice element. So just a quick survey, just a quick sort of summary of what the survey results show so far. We actually expect more survey, and I'm finished with the presentation. Thank you. We actually expect a few more results because our consultants partner, Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative, has said that they've received an indication that there are more paper survey results out there. So even though the survey is closed, we're going to take in those surveys and it'll be over 100 surveys that we've actually gotten at the end of the day. And again, October, we should have a study session for you all to receive that information and digest it rather than me just flying by with a presentation. And you can comment on and help to develop that environmental justice element, which we anticipate you should be seeing by the end of the year and having a recommendation on as well. So that's it for me. Thank you for your time. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Commissions, any comments?
Yeah, I have a very brief comment. To me, it's a little disappointing that 43 people said they were neutral about it, about being heard. And looking at other environmental justice elements in other cities, some of the biggest concerns there were that their concerns were not being heard or implemented the way they wanted to. So I think going forward with our own element, we need to make sure that these people are understanding what we're trying to do to help the city, and that the concerns that they have are being realized and actions being taken to actually address those issues. So I'm hoping that in the October study session, we'll see direct policies and initiatives that will facilitate communication between, I don't know what you would call them, the you said the consultant and our residents. Thank you.
Commission? No questions?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for the warm welcoming. I look forward to working with you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll make it brief too. I look forward to working with all of you, and I just want to thank all the staff for all the hard work they do. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention that the environmental justice, a few comments, especially on the rail section. It's interesting because about 10 years ago, I made a call that we had so much rails in there and all these cars left in there in the tracks. And they said, no, we don't care. You're a city, they're low income city anyway. So that's how they think when it comes to environmental. And we should apply a little more pressure to Edison on that side, which is on where the high school is, and the rail tracks, because that's where all the contamination, all the dust, it comes this way, it contaminate people, and the pollution as far as air. We have the planes that nobody talks about. The planes that goes sometimes a Sunday at 6 o'clock. You can go there with the camera and you can see the serial numbers on the train, on the planes. And only one time I seen it throwing fuel out, discharge fuel. But that to me is insane, because LA is talking about a lot of all this injustice, environmental, and everybody is really, but they don't mention and I'm not against airlines. I mean, but we need to find solutions so we don't contaminate our neighborhood. Just because we are the low income city doesn't mean that we not desire to be like Orange County areas where it's clean and nice, no planes going all over the place. Maybe we need to lobby for some planes to go like before. FAA used to come to the ocean, and now they made a new routes to come to the city, which Southgate has some parts of the plane came loose one time. But you can see it's things you can do that we used to do it before. We used to have routes to go through the ocean. Why stop? We don't know. So we need to make a real justice. We need to come to the community. I think I don't see it. For some reason, now I'm part of this Bell Gardens neighborhood stuff on the internet, because I'm trying to get involved, because it's very hard to get information from the city. I don't know what we need to do, but the people, some sections of the people are not getting the information. If you're not looking for it, they don't go like before, before it was more community oriented. Something it went off. So we might need to make maybe some meetings with the residents, maybe like 3 meetings, and really advertisements so people will come in, because I think everybody's interested in environment. And we have a lot of business around this area that are contaminated and making a lot of noise and make it impossible for people to live like commerce, making all this machinery on the other side at night, making all those noises that goes, at night, and you hear all these machines that they put in there without taking consideration on the neighborhood. Maybe put some hours that you can't do that, or find better machines. It can get done. But anyway, that's why it came to my mind about this environmental injustice. Now, I want to say that you guys really came in and really took over this commission position. Thank you very much, and we welcome you, and we're looking forward to work with you in the future. Thank you very much. Any more comments? We're just gonna need a motion to adjourn then.
Commissioner Mendez, motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second that motion.
Okay. Member, now I will now adjourn the regular planning commission meeting at 7 o'clock.